The other day, I was thinking about what's the 80-20 of achieving any given goal. And if you don't know what that means, by the way, it refers to the Pareto principle, basically saying that in most areas of life, about 80% of your results will typically come from only 20% of your actions. And because these days I'm very focused on this idea of getting the biggest returns on time investments, I'm sitting there thinking, all right, if I set a goal, any goal, what's the one factor that's going to make the biggest difference in whether I actually achieve it? And I was literally about to ask ChatGPT the same exact question when an answer just snapped into my head. And it was one word: clarity. And just to double check myself, I still wanted to ask what AI thinks about it. And sure enough, the answer was clarity. But then I got confused for a second because all these classic self-help books like Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, for example, they all talk about desire, how you need to have a burning desire in order to get what you want. And yes, desire is useful when it comes to motivation for taking action. But let's be real, if you don't know where you're going, you won't even know if you've arrived there. So clarity, being crystal clear on your end result, is the 80-20 of achieving your goal. Now, first of all, we all know that in order to live a great life, we have to have choices, right? Because as consciousness, you're a moving energy. You have to move somewhere. The same way water flows down a hill, because gravity is pulling on it, your consciousness is being pushed from behind by time, right? So as time passes by, pretty much every second you arrive at a new decision point. And if you don't set a direction for your life, if you don't have a framework for what decisions to make at each of those decision points, you will always revert back to your factory settings, so to speak, which may or may not be good for you. You may end up in a good place in life or not. You may end up working at a great job, having a great relationship or not. It's like going to a restaurant and telling the waiter, hey, you know what? I want you to surprise me today. Just bring me whatever. Now, you might get a great meal, your exact favorite. Or you might get the leftover food from the table next door. So having choices to direct your consciousness is crucial. Now, what type of choices is the question? And this is where it gets interesting because it's not just about having a goal. My mentor once told me that there are 8 main ways people mess up goal setting. And the crazy part is almost everyone does at least one of these. Even those who've read all the books, done all the courses, and think they know better. So let's break this down real quick one by one, because once you see this for yourself, you're never going to look at goal setting the same way again. The first trap is choice by limitation. Now, this is when you only choose what seems possible or reasonable. You say things like, well, so often this happens, or in the past this worked, so I'll stick to that. Basically, you're living in the rearview mirror. You're not creating something new, you're just recycling your past limitations and calling it a goal. The second trap is choice by indirectness. And this is when you pick a process instead of an end result. Like saying, I want freedom. Freedom sounds great, right? But freedom to do what? Travel, write a book, quit your job? If you can't answer that, you don't have clarity. You've just chosen a vague process. The third way people make ineffective choices is choice by elimination. Now this one's sneaky because you knock out every option you think you can't have and then pick whatever's left. But the problem with that is you didn't actually choose what you wanted. You just settled for the last option standing. And this approach guarantees oscillation, which means swinging back and forth between progress and setbacks. The next one is choice by default. And this is when you don't make a choice at all, you just react to whatever comes your way. Like we said earlier, it's like going to a restaurant, refusing to order, and letting the waitress bring you food from other people's table. Sometimes you like it, sometimes you hate it, but either way, it wasn't your choice. The fifth trap is conditional choices. Now, this is when you put some kind of precondition on your goals. Like saying, I want love, but only from this one specific person. Which, firstly, completely disregards the idea of free will, but secondly, it's also fear-based. It sets you up for disappointment and all kinds of control games. Trap number 6 is choice by reaction. And this is when you set a goal just to escape something uncomfortable. Like, I want to get rid of my anxiety, or I want to stop being broke. The problem with that is the very thing you're trying to escape is baked into the goal. So all your actions reinforce the problem. You're trying to move away, but the problem is still the center of your attention. See, whatever you focus on trying to get away from is the one thing that always has to exist in that equation. And secondly, and let's just assume that somehow you still succeed anyway, there's this saying that you can solve all your problems and still not live a life that you love. Now, next up, the 7th trap is choice by consensus. This one is classic. This is when you choose what your family, your friends, your culture thinks is acceptable for you. You don't want to rock the boat, so you just conform. but then you end up living someone else's life. It's very common in places with strong group identities. Scandinavia would be a good example, but honestly, it happens everywhere. And the last one is choice by adverse possession. I know it's a weird name for it, but it simply means making choices based on how you think the universe has to work. Like saying, well, this is just the way things are, so I guess this is all I can aim for. Which is the total opposite of being a true creator. Instead of orienting toward what you want, you shrink to fit what you think reality will allow. Now, these are the 8 main ways people mess up goal setting, but the funny thing is, even when I teach this or I give this list to people, they still can see their own blind spots. They will still tell me, my goal is to finally be capable, or my goal is to do everything perfectly, or I just want to fully express myself. And when I hear that, I instantly know they're still operating from the unconscious agenda. They're still trying to fix the way they feel broken. Remember, a true end result is not about fixing yourself. It's about creating something you'd love to see exist simply because you'd love it. That's the difference. So if you want me to personally walk you through this, to help you find your true end result, not just another negative vision, book a free session with me at the link in the description. And to really drive this point home, let me tell you about one of my favorite studies. Back in 1953, Yale researchers asked graduating seniors if they had clear written down goals for their future. Only 3% of them said yes. Now fast forward 20 years and that tiny 3% had accumulated more wealth than the other 97% combined. Now think about that for a second. Same education, same starting point, right? Same opportunities, but the small group who had clarity blew everyone else out of the water. That's the power of clarity. Not hustle, not burning desire, clarity. And by the way, if you watched my last video, you'll remember I talked about how the unconscious mind functions like a guided missile. Once you give it a target, it won't stop until it hits it. But here's the catch. Without clarity, there is no target. You're just wandering around randomly wasting your energy. Clarity is how you lock on. So if you haven't seen that video yet, you might want to check it out after this one. Now, if you want more content like this, come join my free Superconscious Awakening community. The link for that is in the description. We go way deeper into this stuff, and you will also get tools to shift your structure and start creating results you've been trying to achieve for years. And if you're ready to stop setting and going after fake goals and finally get clarity on your true end results, book a free session with me. I promise you, I'll help you see what you can't see on your own, and that clarity can literally change the whole trajectory of your life. Links are below. I'll see you inside.